Hello everyone, it's Chris here, and we're going to speak today about a book called Codename Odette, which is one of the earlier books. I think it is the eighth book in the series. Of course, the name Odette actually refers to Angelique, our heroine in the books. It refers to her heroine, Odette Churchill, who was captured during World War II in France. She was a special operations executive, SOE agent, and she was at that stage involved with a commander who was a guy called Peter Churchill, who was in no way related to that arch liar Winston. But the two of them were probably lovers at that stage, and after the war they married. And then sadly, I have to say, the marriage didn't last. Like many of these wartime marriages, after a few years, it spark just didn't go there. Anyway, when Odette Churchill was captured in France, in occupied France by the Nazis, he actually told them that she's in charge and that Peter Churchill is actually just the muscle man, it's just the hunk who's there, but she's actually the spy master, she's actually the one in charge. Uh, that wasn't quite true, but she took the blame. And by doing that, of course, the Germans focused all their torture and things on her. In fact, at one stage, they pulled all her toenails out. Man, it's amazing the torture, which happens. And code name while she was in France was Lise, which is why you would see we actually have a book called Codename Lise. Some say Lisa, but actually it's Lise, like in French. I suppose you can say in English Lise, Lise, Lisa. Afrikaans as well, I suppose. They know that. And so it's fascinating also that Angelique, when she and Foxtrot got married and she gave birth to the twins, who features a lot in the books, the daughters, she actually called the eldest twin Lise, which shows that for Angelique, her admiration for Odette Churchill or Samson was her maiden name, or perhaps a name after the marriage with Churchill came to an end. I'm not sure anymore. But she actually rated work which he done during the wartime higher than the rest of her life. But I can tell you that this woman, Odette, she was awarded the George Cross, which is the same as the Victoria Cross. Amazing story. If you don't know it, then please research it a bit. I'm sure there's movies made about her as well. And then in her old age, some criminal in the UK actually broke into her flat and stole her George Cross, and there's a lot of uproar about it in the newspapers, and so he returned the cross with a letter of apology handwritten. And if you look at the letter, you can see this guy is not a product of Eton and best schools in the UK. He writes like a child. I don't know if I ever caught him. Don't know if perhaps somebody else wrote it on his behalf. That's what I would have done. And so, anyway, to make a long story short, the medal was returned. And can say this to you, whenever the real Angelique is in the UK, she used to always go to Odette Churchill's grave and put some flowers down there. So anyway, that's where the name of the book comes from. As I say, there is a code named Lise as well. So let me just quickly tell you what's the book about. Basically, I wrote the book because I became very aware of the fact that the West does not realize that their codes and ciphers are broken. Yeah, broken. Now, that is what I just said to you should ring all sorts of alarm bells. But of course it doesn't, because they simply don't believe it. They think it's impossible, it cannot be done. That's the story behind it. So we're going into codes and ciphers in quite a big way into the book as well. But in the book anyway, Angelique and the team are in Nigeria, in West Africa. In Lagos, now I know Lagos, of course, quite well. I was there for 2 years working as a legal advisor for a very well-known, very, very big security company. It was good times. There were good people around. I wasn't that impressed with the company itself, but it was just after I left the shadows and I needed a job, and I was really grateful to get a job which paid in US dollars, and I thought I would stay there for a long, long time. But sadly, things just went horribly wrong there. With yeah, well, it doesn't matter. But let me say that the entire management team was replaced, and it's just crazy. But anyway, so what happens is that in the book anyway, that Angelique believes that the ciphers were broken at the UK embassy in Abuja, place where I've been many times. Abuja, of course, is where the capital actually of Nigeria. It used to be Lagos, I think, and then they moved it to Abuja, which is 100 times nicer than Lagos. Lagos is, wow, it's a big place. And you will read in this book about the traffic jams, and those of you who have been to Lagos will recognize instantly the different hotels I'm talking about there, and the different roads, and the airport. And yeah, it's like that with all James A books, of course. If you actually read the book and you've been to the place, or you go to the place where it plays off, yeah, you'll be able to sit there and just look and see, oh, okay, this is what happened, that's what happened. Yeah, it's this place here, and yeah, we probably sat at that table there at the corner. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, why not? So anyway, she becomes aware that there's a decoded signal of a message which he planted as barium charts. But this thing is now floating around at the jihadis, and she knows where it comes from. The barium charts, if you don't know what it is, read the book. But basically, that's where you give true information, but not essential information to see where it leaks out. So in the old days, they would give you like papers like my notes here, and then it's in a certain way it's written. And in this papers, of course, then is photograph, a photo taken of it, and it suddenly comes up in the KGB. And I've signed for the papers, and I'm the only one who had papers looking like this. Then yeah, man, what do you think is going to happen? They are definitely going to then think that these papers came from you, which is not to say that you actually leaked it, but it is definitely to say that the investigation will focus upon you. So that's a barium wheel or barium charts. There's many ways you can do it. If you read code name Green 41, you will see that Angelique actually used barium, I think it was, to track a pipeline. Well, that's another story, which I don't want to be reminded about. But anyway, so through this, she knows there's something happening at the UK embassy in Abuja, and they think it might be one of these cipher clerks or whatever, some gay fellow, and they track him down to the island of Sao Tome. Now, guys, I don't know how many of you have been to Sao Tome. If you haven't been there, please go there. It's one of the most fascinating places in the world. It's a small island. It plays a major, major role in the Biafra War, where South Africa, of course, was involved as well. Came out later. But Biafra, there's still aircraft standing there, or there used to be at the airport in Sao Tome, where these aircraft were basically flying, breaking sanctions, and they were flying ammo and whatever into Biafra, which is where the oil is in Nigeria, and MENT, the terrorist organization they call MENT. Are they really a terrorist organization? Man, I don't know. I worked with them. And of course, we dealt with an actual hostage situation there where South African soundman or something from Mnet, I believe, was captured there. But if you listen to my series on hostage survival, which of course no big company ever train its people in. Don't do that. No, no. Let them go there. Let them die. That's fine. That's fine. But if you listen to my Hostage series, survival series, you will actually, I think I speak about Mint. Now, I can tell you, Mint is actually a good cause to be terrorist. If you go around there in the where Biafra used to be at the southern part of Nigeria, where the oil is, you'll definitely find out now these big oil companies just, man, they have no respect. Fuck all. Nothing. There's one place there which the fire has been burning there since 1950 something. In fact, if you approach it, all the ground around it has turned into glass by now. And then it stinks. You see all these oil leaks, it's beyond belief. It's beyond belief what people do for money. And of course, you can get away with it in a place like Nigeria. But anyway, that didn't work out, as we know that Nigeria, with Western help, actually defeated the Biafra insurgency, and so sadly they never became independent. They would have. It's the same story as Katanga. They would have been a Western-orientated type of country, which was not what the West wanted, and so they just stopped it. But as I say, if you go to South Tome, you still see these aircraft standing there, which used to fly all these secret missions and things in the old days to Biafra. And then also, this video is just not focusing right today. It doesn't matter. Then also, if you approach South Tome, you see something most spectacular, better than Swineland or Switzerland anyway. There's like a mountain, and this mountain there sticks up like a tower of rock. I don't know how to put it in a different way. I'll show you a picture. But this thing sticks out above the clouds. And it's like just standing there. It's like this rock face. It's just the most amazing sight. You have to see this to believe me. It's amazing. It's amazing to see. But anyway, we're flying there with old Vietnam era C-7 Caribou. It's a twin-engine cargo aircraft. Their plan is basically to capture this guy, to snatch him, this mole, and then they arrange they will drop him by parachute onto a British submarine, or some submarine, or whatever. But anyway, sadly, his parachute. Oh, I'm not going to tell you the whole story. You can listen to yourself. But there's something happening in the background, because there's people in Angelique's organization who's trying to kill her. And as it happens, they've got explosives on this aircraft, and they, in other words, have a bomb. And they placed a bomb in such a way that you can't defuse it in flight. Now, they don't know about this, but by the grace of God, one of the engines, something goes wrong with the engine, and she had to make an emergency landing on the ocean. And so the explosive device is dislodged, and then it is discovered. Now, from this, the book after this one, I think, is codenamed Sanford, where Angelique takes revenge. Don't know if I spoke about Sanford before. I probably still have to. I know there's about 5 or 6 books left, which means 5 or 6 weeks of watching the book series if you want to. I had a great amount of fun to do this, I have to say to you. Anyway, that's the story. But besides this, there is, of course, serious things in the background going on. I don't know if I said it, but the book's about 360 pages long, 359. So it's not a long book, but it's not a short book either. And it cost me a laptop. Yeah. What happened is I was doing quite a bit of research, especially on ciphers and things like that. And I do have the latest updates, and I do have the latest antivirus and everything. But my laptop then just went haywire. It broke so badly that I just couldn't get it fixed. So definitely somewhere along the line, somebody spiked my computer and did something to me. I don't use it to watch porn or anything like that. But it was directly after this book, and I was, to be frank with you, very broke at those days. I came back from Nigeria. I thought I would get a job in South Africa quite easily because, I have legal knowledge of Nigeria as well as South Africa, which are the two big powerhouses in Sub-Saharan Africa. And now, of course, I forgot I had a white skin too. So, of course, wherever you go, it's like, affirmative action. But I hate those words. I hate those words. Basically every single South African I speak to who's left the country, every one of them say to me, because, we left for our children's sake because we don't want them to go through what we went through looking for jobs. That's why 90% of your doctors are not there. That is why if a medical schools wants to have a reunion, yeah, where do we hold it? Joburg? No, not Joburg. No. No, we go to the UK, to London, or we go to somewhere in Australia, or we go to the US. And sadly, these people are welcomed there with open arms. And where are you now, new government? Yeah, tell me, where you? Oh, yeah, okay. So for me to get a new laptop was really, really hard. It was really bad. At the end of the day, my mom actually, they said so, got a wonderful mom. She said, look, I can see you struggling. I'll buy you a new laptop. So, when I was still earning fairly good money, I would always treat my mom. You need a new washing machine with mom. Let me service your car, ma. You need some whatever. I was really not a stingy person at all. But I can tell you that you quickly find out how many real friends you have when you don't have a job or an income or you're married well or something like that. Now you find out. You have very few friends actually. Family? Nah, nothing. Brothers, sisters, nah, they don't care. They don't care. They don't care. No, they look down on you. You're a loser, man. It reminds me of a Bible. I think it's Matthew 7 or something, but I might be wrong quoting, but definitely it stands in the Bible that you walk past your brother where you can see he's in trouble. Say, hey, hope you eat well tonight, man. I hope you sleep warm. I hope, yeah. He's not. He doesn't have food, doesn't have money. He's going through hard times, being humiliated. And you wish him well and you just walk away. Go and eat your T-bone there in the spur. Mm. Mm. You'll have to explain that one day to God, because I think it was Jesus who said, what you do to the least, you do to me. So I think sometimes, you find people who is in need of assistance. And of course, you can't help everyone and you have to be very peculiar about it. I mean, you have to actually look at the situation. But at the end of the day, you also have to make a choice whether you want to go and eat your T-bone at the spur and forget about your brothers in need, your sisters in need. I don't know, guys. It changed me. Those years have actually changed me considerably. I will never walk away from where I can help. Never. It's not always money. Sometimes it's a prayer, sometimes just a smile, sometimes just a hug, sometimes just an ear to listen. Yeah. Yeah. So you learn, you go through life. But anyway, so Sao Tome is a fantastic place, and if you can ever get there, then get there. But in this book, we also start talking about what is actually a cipher and what is actually a code. It's very important. You need to understand the difference. And the difference between the two is explained in this book in Codename Odette. It's really well explained. There's examples being used. It basically comes down to a cipher is something mathematical. In other words, it's like a computer code or it's a mathematical thing which you can work out and break. And we'll speak about Moore's law just now. And then there's, of course, a code. So, in other words, a code will reflect to something which is not obvious. Like this book, Codename Odette. What does that mean? I just explained it to you what it means. Um, so unless you know what codename Udet is or what it refers to, it means nothing to you. And that's the way it is with all military things. I mean, we think of ops, Alpha Centauri or whatever, you know. You don't know what that means at all unless you've been there or you studied it and it came out afterwards. Or D-Day, you know, Overlord, all those things we know now, but in those days we didn't know. And that code system is actually used in Slidex. Now, Slidex was a British Army Second World War code, Slidex, and we used it in my time in the counterinsurgency units of the police. We were still using Slidex. And of course, special forces would use Morse code behind enemy lines, also using a form of Slidex. Basically, it would say that if there's, it's like a code. If you type in 44, it means that for the guy on the other side, 44 means I need emergency medical assistance. You know, that's how it is. But the fact that the Slidex is not a good code or cipher to use is actually quite pathetic. The Germans broke Slidex routinely during World War II. And in 1944, this became obvious. There was Field Marshal Hasso von Tiefel, probably the best tank commander of the war on any side. He was in command at that stage of the 5th Panzer Army. And he moved it. He broke the code and he knew there was an attack coming and he moved his army away. And had them repositioned it. But that, of course, showed the Brits that their Slidex was broken. Nevertheless, being the Brits, they kept on using Slidex and forms of Slidex until 1980. In the meantime, they also sold Enigma type of machines, same thing, which they sold to Australia and the other Commonwealth nations. Why? Because they could read the code. They could read the cipher, sorry. Yeah, you trust them, huh? Wonderful people. What about Swineland? What about Switzerland? I said this to you before. Came out just a year or two ago that there was a Swiss company who also had like an Enigma machine from the Second World War, where you type S and it would scramble it into whatever letter or figure or whatever, and then you type E and then it scrambles again, and unless you know the code or the cipher to set up the disks and the things inside, you wouldn't be able to actually know decipher it. Yeah, and then it has to come out, the Swiss are neutral, and of course you can trust them when they build these machines. They would never share it with anybody, would they? No, of course they flip and swine. What do you think? You know whose money started this company of theirs? CIA money. And so for many years, the African nations, oh, you idiots. But they probably bribed you, they probably bribed you to have a Swiss bank account. Because, the Swiss bank accounts are never, ever opened up or declared. Yeah, you're a double idiot if you think that. Really, it's not like that at all. No. They just keep it quite in-house because they want that money. They play with it. That's why Switzerland is probably never going to get attacked. Sadly so. I would love to see it destroyed in a conventional attack. Even terrorism, that would work for me too. Not really, just a desire. I hope it never happens. But they're arrogant pieces of shite. And because they keep everybody money there, all the dictators, all the drug money, everything is there. That's why they are pretty safe. But yeah, so they betrayed you as well, like they always do. So it was the Brits first who started with this Enigma thing, which they improved and handed over to the Commonwealth mates to read everything. And of course, what the Brits reads, 5 eyes, hello, 10 eyes, 20 eyes, 50 eyes, whatever. 5 eyes, yeah. That automatically, of course, goes to the US. We speak in this book quite a bit about the MI6 efforts during World War II, which was pretty shite and pathetic. The only thing which I had going for them there was actually they could break the codes and the ciphers on the other side. So what the government, what school of ciphers or whatever they call themselves. Yeah, no, it's fascinating, these things, and a lot of things people don't know. But anyway, then came the Snowden fellow, of course, who was working at no such agency, NSA, as a contractor. And he actually ran away with a whole bunch of information which we gave over to, I don't know, Glenn Greenwald or something, somebody somewhere, and then he came out, and at that stage Snowden was, I think, in Hong Kong, which was immensely stupid to go to Hong Kong. But from there on, he went to Russia, where he still is today, the hero of many. But in this book, you will actually find out what happened after Snowden. Actually, his stories came out. Let me get it to you. I'm a bit out of sequence here, but let me talk about it. Al-Qaeda and its followers, immediately after the Snowden revelations came out, they brought no less than 5 new ciphers into Windows, as well as Symbian and Android. Yeah, so they immediately took note of it, that their codes and ciphers are broken, and they immediately upgraded it, they immediately changed it. Now, 4 of this 5, and this is 10 years, 12 years ago, so not revealing any secrets anymore. They moved on from those days. We have advanced AES and Twofish. That's the old Blowfish encryption. Yeah, we use that. It is said that Blowfish has never been broken ever. You can download it still, I think. I used Blowfish for quite a while. I'm not sure that it was this claim of never been broken. I don't really believe it, but a normal criminal would actually struggle to break it. So most of Al-Qaeda, the new ciphers, were working on mobiles, encrypting text or instant messages, which just shows you, I mean, the weakness of this is that every damn terrorist in the world now has a mobile phone, which is why in Iraq, every single mobile phone message or conversation at one stage was completely and utterly intercepted. Yeah. And then came, of course, MTN, the South African company, who started opening in Iran. And then it came out that they actually also had some involvement with Western intelligence agencies, probably Mossad also, where they had opened doors to get into back doors. And MTN was so worried about this allegations, which I think is true, but they denied it, that they actually appointed a UK judge, retired judge or something, to investigate, and this guy whitewashed him. Yeah. Well, I can tell you in Africa, though, wherever you see a South African mobile network, I guarantee you the South African Secret Service, or whatever they call it today, has access. Yes. Do they have access? Tell me who else have? CIA? MI6? NSA? No, screw them. Of course not. They're the enemy. No, man, BRICS. Russia. They would have. China, yeah, of course. Iran, of course. BRICS nations, but BRICS nations. Been warning you so many times. So anyway, what this Snowden is he almost certainly caused American lives to be killed, because suddenly they would not have been able to read the terrorist. Now, it's not to say you have to read him to understand him. We know, for instance, that if at a certain time, let's say on a Friday at certain mosques, there's a huge meeting there, and there's some radical imam there, and there are many people there. Yeah, you can be damn well assured that by Sunday there's going to be a suicide bomb somewhere. You can make these deductions. It was also so with the terrorists who flew those aircraft during 9/11. Yeah, all of them Saudis, yeah. They were Saudis, most of them, 99% were Saudis. Yeah, that friend of yours, the one who crucifies people. Yeah, that one. You know, the one who supports all the Muslim terrorism, the jihadi Sunni terrorist groups. That's Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Yeah, yeah. That one. The one where Donald Trump is always dancing around with a sword, looking like even more an idiot. Yeah, yeah, that one. Yeah. You know the one where you sell all your weapons to? Mm, mm. The one who raised the oil price in 1974 in revenge for Yom Kippur against Israel. You know? Remember those lines? No petrol, and suddenly it was the end of a V8. And the muscle cars, and everybody had to go to 1100 Mini. Yeah, remember that? Yeah, it's that country. Yeah, yeah, your big mate. Your big mate. Can't understand it. Really don't. And of course, the one country will actually assist you, who's actually fighting Al Qaeda, actually fighting ISIS. Who's that? Iran. Oh, yeah, yeah, Iran. The one with the nuclear program which you destroyed, but which your own intelligence said they don't have. Yeah, yeah. And then it comes out you didn't even destroy whatever they had. Yeah. And now you're just lying further and lying further and lying further. Oh. You know, it's amazing what we see from the outside. But anyway, to make a long story short, is that after the Snowden betrayals, and it was betrayal, nothing else, Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these people immediately upgraded their codes and their ciphers, and they became very much aware of it. And so people would have died. It's that simple. So anyway, they had these fantastic names, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, for their codes, or for their cipher programs. Mujahideen Secrets was one called. The other one was called Tashfir al-Jawal. It was for mobiles. ISIS itself created Asrar al-Ghuraba, which is a specialist software, not based on anything online. Why? Why could ISIS do that? Because they had software engineers, because these engineers were recruited online, and like the jihadi bribes, they're stupid. So they went there and they immediately got a flat in occupied places because the original owners, where were they? No, they did. They were all executed. Yeah. Yeah. And then if this little software engineer wants a bride, well, yeah, you just go downstairs and you look around for a Christian woman or one of the Muslim women or, of the other Muslim sects which you don't believe in. And you just say to her, I'm now married to you. Yeah, yeah. Then you're married to her, so you rape her. Yeah, yeah, you rape her. And then after a while you think to yourself, well, there's another one I want. Perhaps I want this one anymore. My mate Abdullah really wants to screw this one as well. Yeah, so you just say to her, I'm divorcing you now. And then she's divorced. And then comes your mate Abdullah. What does he do? Oh, I'm marrying you. Yeah, yeah. Then I rape you too. Yeah, yeah. There's one woman who actually testified she was raped about 10,000 times. Yeah. If you read Code Name Wednesday 7, you will see how we went into great detail and explained to you how these jihadis can take the Quran, which is totally against this type of thing, and then they would twist it around so that they can get past rape by being married to this woman. You won't get away with that in Western law, by the way. The fact that you're married is not to say that you can still rape her. But there are certain legal systems which says, of course, they do expect the marriage to be actually have sexual intercourse afterwards. And if not, then that would be a reason for divorce. It might be that the man is unable to perform. It might also be that the wife says, I'm not going to do it. And then you expect that type of thing to actually happen in a marriage. So, yeah, it's serious. It's serious, guys. Yeah, all these things. Anyway, these days it comes down to artificial intelligence. If you want to break ciphers, you need brute force. In other words, you need to hammer it. You need to try different methods. I'm trying now from a cold break. We're talking about a cold break. I'm not saying we actually have a cipher already, or we have a backdoor, or we have a code, the actual physical computer code. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying you're trying to break an enemy cipher. Then it comes down to artificial intelligence and Moore's law. Now, basically, what this Moore's law has said is that computers get more powerful every 2 years or something. It doubles. Now, is that quite true? No, not really. In fact, sometimes it more than doubles. Sometimes it's millions of times double, especially where AI is involved. And the country leading AI, US, yeah, of course, Silicon Valley. No, China, hello, China. Why? Because China spend more money on AI than any other country. I would say the rest of the world combined with a factor of 10. Mm, mm. That's why Pakistan, when they started using Chinese missiles and Chinese air defense systems against India, because no, it's not a bad air force, they shut down how many French Rafales? Or how many? 2 or 3 of them, huh? Yeah, you people forgot about that, right? You don't remember that anymore. Let me tell you, that is very well remembered in other countries, and people got the shock of their lives. And of course, then you have Donald Trump, best military in the world. Oh, yeah, sure, Donald. By far. Of course, Donald. Of course, Daddy. Yeah, Daddy. You know, I agree, Daddy. The Daddy story has to do with this NATO idiot, what's his name, Rutte, calling Donald Trump Daddy. And then he went out and he says, no, he didn't actually say that. He was just saying he wants to know if the US is still part of the family of NATO. And the family, of course, has a father. And therefore, I'm your father. Okay, guys, I'm not a good stand-up comedian, am I? But the books are quite funny. So some of them are very, very funny. You know what else came out, which is incredible, is that in this book we had to find out that a US senator can be bribed by BlackRock. Now, with BlackRock, nobody really knows who's the owners of BlackRock. They don't declare it. But BlackRock, I can tell you, is one of the top 3 or 4 investment mega companies in the world. They own shares in virtually everything, especially military companies, you know, the MIC, those people, everything else, AI, whatever, they have their little tentacles everywhere. And especially in where? What do I hear? Ukraine. Yeah, Ukraine. Yeah, because they bought out all the Ukraine's arable farms and lands. Why do you think that war is going on there? And then just last week, and this is now 6 months ago, I don't know what's going to happen. Probably nothing. Oh, probably, I don't know. This last week we hear that Australia, oh shame, that they sent now troops, Nigerian troops, not on a cover to Odessa, because these troops have to help with air defense and they have to help Australians escape from Ukraine. Yeah, why? Is Ukraine losing the war? Huh? I thought they were winning. I don't know what's going on. France as well, and I think the Brits, oh shame. And so why are you doing that? Why do I need to escape? You're winning the war, huh? You're just outside Moscow. Are you not? Are you not? No, Russia is fucking you up. That's what's happening. Yeah. Did I not warn you? Did I not tell you? No, I did. And so there's every chance in the book, of course, that these Australians and NATO forces are going to get killed there. Yeah, that's going to happen probably. Hope not. Australia, of course, is not part of NATO, but yeah, but anyway, whatever. So why do you think Australians are there to rescue their citizens in a war which, of course, they are winning? They're not winning. No, they're not winning. I think by the time you listen, Australia is probably back home and almost certainly Ukraine has surrendered. Yeah. It's because it seems that Russia is now advancing and they took over all the fields where there's a lithium mines or something, or there can be because it's under the ground. And this was sold, I think, for $185 million to an Australian company. Yeah. So you see the hands of BlackRock behind these things? Do you see it? You should. You should. You really ought to see it. And that's quite often the reasons in the background why a war breaks out. You think in terms of, democracy and to bring freedom, bullshit. All has to do with minerals, has to do with oil. And they say it's going to have to do with water as well in the future. Also, see what Hollywood does. Hollywood suddenly have a James Bond movie out. And the James Bond movie is about water and water being stolen, things like that. Yeah. 10 years down the line, 15 years. Oh, yeah, you're being prepared, my man. You're being prepared. So BlackRock, yeah. Anyway, let me tell you something else as well. And then I'll end it here. I don't want to make a long story here. I'm actually busy with other things here also. I've mentioned this briefly in other books. It's in many books, but about 10 years ago, it is much, much worse now. The NSA, that is no such agency. That's the ones who do with decoding and encoding, things like that. National Security Agency, the one which Snowden ran away from with his memory stick. And of course, the GCHQ, it's the British code breakers. They harvest, they grab about 21 million gigabytes of data every single day. It's 10 years ago, triple it now. Now, to put that in perspective for you, if you have a GMJ book of about 400 pages, that's about 1 meg in size. So if you have 21 million of them every day, and now you have these couple of hundred code breakers have to go through every single one of these intercepts to find out what's going to happen in the future. Yeah. Can you see how stupid this is? It is impossible. It cannot be done. It cannot be done. It's not possible. So what do? They have AI and they have big computers. Then they have search engines. Read OSDM, where we talk about counter-espionage, ways of doing investigations. That's one of the books I also still have to talk about, I think. Fascinating book, that. And what they then do is they look for certain words. In other words, they would say something like, kill the president, or somebody's name, Muhammad, whatever, and link it to something. And then whatever is in that database now, it grabs it out and it brings it to you. And then you, perhaps as an analyst, can then look at it and decide, okay, well, guys, perhaps this or perhaps that. And they try and work this out. Your problem in life is you'll never be able to go more than a percentage point of a percent. I say 1% in the books, but I'm being very kind to you. So in other words, if you collect all these things, but you can't really use it. That's why intelligence sometimes look extremely stupid to you, and that is why many of the intelligence analysts actually go to the news. They go to CNN and what have you, and they look there, and that's where they get their information from. And that's where they brief the president. And then you have a president like Trump who doesn't believe it. When his director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who we really had hope for once, and she says there is no such thing as Iranian nuclear war program. We haven't seen it since 2006. She testifies like that under oath in Congress. And then Trump turns around and says, I don't know what she said, and anyway, I don't believe her. She's wrong. Yeah, why is she wrong, Trump? Why is she wrong? Oh, because you get your information from where? Mossad, from an enemy intelligence agency. Yeah. Enemy. Yeah, why do I use that word? Because you talk to any CIA member, you talk to any non-Mossad member, and they will all say to you, anybody who is not part of us is the enemy. You talk to Mossad and they will say, yeah, of course the South Africans are our enemy. Of course the CIA is our enemy. It is just a way of outlook. So it is an enemy intelligence agency who wants what? They want America to attack Iran. That's their wet dream. They want that. They want it above all because they can't do it themselves. They can't destroy Iran. They don't have an army to do it. They don't have an air force to do it. They have nothing. They can't do it. It's too big. It's too far away. But if we can get the US to do it for us. Hmm. Hmm. So here you have a president who is in fact a traitor. Yeah, I'm really surprised that nobody has called him a traitor yet, as far as I can see, because if you have subjected your country to control and command of a different country, which is not your greatest ally, because show me where you've signed. Show me the treaty obligations between you to help each other. Come, show me. Show me the treaty. Oh, it don't exist. No, it doesn't exist. No, it doesn't exist. So how can it be your greatest ally? Hmm? Tell me, how's it possible in law? How's it possible? No, it's not. No. And here you have a guy who rejects his own intelligence people who are pathetic, but still you should do the patriotic thing. So he rejects that. He listens to another country who actually plays him for full. I'll summarize it for you. Anyway, so they collect all these information and now they can't use it. Same thing happened when they broke the codes in World War II with Enigma. And when they broke that, they couldn't get that to a tactical level quickly. No, they would try. They would send certain things to the top commanders like Montgomery and the rest. But Montgomery and the rest could not, and Eisenhower could not explain to the local army commanders exactly why they saying this. So they would say something like, I have a hunch. My hunch is that the Italians or the Germans are going to do X, Y, Z. And then this general below is like, that's not what my intelligence says, so he ignores it. Bingo, when it happens. And the 10th time this happened, that general is fired and sent home in disgrace to go and train troops. But of course, he gets medals. Of course. West Point Association will take care of each other. Of course. Scientists will take care of each other. Yeah, of course. But anyway, so then these generals actually became known as people with absolutely brilliant, intuitive feelings for battle. Yeah. Until the 1970s, and then it came out that the codes were broken, the Enigma, Secret, Ultra, and all those things started coming out, and now history books had to be rewritten. It wasn't, but it could be. Because now your question is, how good was Montgomery? Or how good was Eisenhower? How good was Churchill? How good were they? They knew what the enemy was going to do because they read the codes. How good were they? You see the problem here. Do you understand now what when Winston Churchill, that outsider, that 53-degree Freemason, yeah, the one who was the Druidic priest, that one, Walker. Yeah, the greatest man that ever lived in Britain. That's what they say. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Winston Churchill, when he wrote his books about the First World War, where he played not a great role at all, but he was there, I have to say. He actually mentioned Room 18. He actually betrayed the secrets of the code breaking. He betrayed it. Yeah, he did. But during the Second World War, when he wrote his books afterwards, and fantastic books to read, all bullshit. I mean, there's nothing truthful in it, but it's fantastically well written. He doesn't say a word about Ultra. He doesn't say a word about Enigma. He doesn't say anything. He just keeps quiet. Now, question to you. Did he keep quiet because he learned his lesson from the First World War and he didn't want to betray secrets? Especially seen in the lights of the Enigma machines, which was given now to the Commonwealth countries, and the shite which the Swiss were doing there at, where was it? I think it was in Bern, or was it Bern? Yeah, I don't know, whatever. Was he trying to protect that secret, or was it, oh, look at me, I'm such a great war leader. Oh, I'm Churchill. Look at this, man. I had the feeling for this battle. Me, Churchill. Probably both. Anyway, that's your problem. And we'll end this with the last story is called Operation Vengeance of 1943. Now, Operation Vengeance is where the Americans betrayed that they could read the Japanese Navy code. It was called Magic or something. And because they could read it, they would know where the admiral in charge of the Pearl Harbor attack would be. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, who is seen by the Americans as a most horrible person. He's the most, man, if there's ever a guy who betrayed God and country and the US of A and all that, then you're talking about Admiral Yamamoto. Yeah, because he did the sneaky attack on Pearl Harbor, don't you know? The day of infamy. Yes, infamy. Yes, on a Sunday too, you know, when people were supposed to be judged. That's when they attacked us. Yeah. Have you heard of Franklin Delano Roosevelt's 8-point plan to force him to do that? Huh? Did you hear about that? If you haven't heard about it, read my books, please educate yourself. Do you know that the US Navy didn't want to station their fleet at Hawaii because they knew such an attack could take place? Do you know that? Probably not. Do you know that there was actually a rehearsal of the US carriers doing exactly what Yamamoto later did? Yeah, do you know that? Roosevelt wouldn't listen. Do you know that? No, of course not. Do you know about tricycle? Does that word ring a bell to you? No, of course not. Tricycle, let me explain to you, was a Yugoslav. He was a triple agent. He worked for the Brits, he works for the Germans, but especially for the Brits. That's where his loyalty was. And the FBI. Yeah. And he found out about the attack on Pearl Harbor coming, and the Brits actually sent him to the FBI to inform them. And what happened? Tell me. Hoover. Yeah, you know, that play Gossett Gay for the FBI. Fake Jesuit, by the way. Yeah, we have evidence. He didn't believe him. And so he got so angry with this guy that he locked him up. Yeah, he got arrested under I think the Mann Act or something, because he took a girl, I think she was about 20 years old or something, across state lines and had sex with her. She wasn't a child, you know, she was a grown woman. And totally not rape. No. But he actually arrested him on that, or he wanted to, and then Pearl Harbor happened. And in his book, Tricycle, Dasko Popov is his real name. Brilliant guy, PhD in law. He said, I was so excited when I heard about Pearl Harbor. I thought there was going to be like an ambush, man. That the Japanese carriers are sunk and you know. Yeah, no, sunk. No, nothing at all. And so anyway, they found out that this guy would be at a certain place at a certain time because they broke the code. And so they decided they're going to attack him and kill him. And a whole bunch of P-58 long-range fighters of the US Army Air Force, this is before the USAF actually existed, 19 of April 1943, ambushed his aircraft. They shot him down, and there he died. And the First Lieutenant Rex T. Barber is actually credited for this kill, but we don't really know because there were a lot of unsavory things happening there also afterwards. You can read about it in my books. But then, of course, immediately the Japs realized that their code must have been broken, their cipher. And that's why the counter-espionage people didn't want this to happen. They don't want to betray that they could read the codes. And then that's one of the things which makes it a very hard decision for the spy masters is, if you have this hard intelligence, can you use it? And then betray your networks. Lastly, I'll say this to you. It's very fascinating that Yamamoto is seen as this horrible person. You know what the funny thing about Admiral Yamamoto is? That he was actually against the attack on Pearl Harbor. He lived in the US. He said, guys, this will hurt the Americans, but it won't stop them. You don't understand how big that country is. They will come back at us. And you know what? Between 1941 December to 1945, how many aircraft carriers did the US build? How many do you think? Today they can build one every 50 years, basically. Yeah, let me be kind, every 15 years. But yeah, and for every one they built, the Chinese can build how many? How many? 281. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it is. And yeah, how many? 124. Wow, guys, 124. Do you know how long it took the US to build a bomber like a B-24 or a B-17? Less than an hour. Less than an hour. Yeah. These Liberty ships, how long do you think it takes them to build that thing? Average 3 weeks. But they built one actually in 4 days once. Yeah, just to show they can do it. Wow, guys, that's amazing. It's beyond belief. There's nothing of that left. No. When the US became the second beast of the Bible, see Oath of Evil, listen to my other videos, go and research. Yeah, they lost all of it. They don't have it anymore. Don't have it. Now you're going to fight a war against major countries. I don't know. I don't know. Hope I never find out. Yeah. But funny thing is, you hate Yamamoto, no? Sneaky attack. Yeah. Why? Because there were peace negotiations going on. But Japs and Americans were actually talking. Yeah. Why? Because America started the entire blockade on Japan, basically. And they were cutting off all their iron and oil. At up to then, the Japanese would buy all the scrap iron in the US, because they would use it to build weapons, kill the Americans with. But the main problem in life was oil. Don't have oil. Still today, they don't have oil. And so the US started a total embargo, sanctions. And this is one of those times where sanctions actually started the war. Yeah, it did. Hello, idiot. You know that? No, of course you don't. No, you sit there and just shout about sanctions from hell. Gonna break this country. You won't break a country like you will never break a country like Russia or China. You couldn't even break South Africa, man. You couldn't even do that. Now you think, oh shame. So now Russia's economy is doing what? It's growing 5-6% a year. Western Europe, what's happening with you? Oh no, we're shrinking. Oh yeah, great Germany. That's how you do it. Yeah. That's how you do it. Your economy is collapsing. Clever. That's what happens when you bow down to a second beast. But tell me, you Americans, perhaps a few of you are listening here to me. You really hate Yamamoto. You see him as the ultimate betrayal. He's worse than Judas. Worse than Judas. Tell me what happened on 13 June 2025. You know, when Israel attacked Iran 2 days, 48 hours before the other meeting, diplomacy, was going to take place with the US about their non-existent nuclear weapons program. What's the difference? Tell me, what's the difference between Trump Netanyahu? What's the thing called? I know his Polish name, Benjamin Netanyahu, whatever. Hopefully by this time when you listen to me now, he's already in jail. But we don't know. Trump wants him released, and what Trump wants will happen. Yeah. Why? Because you think the Jews are controlling the US? No. The US is the second beast. They're controlling Israel. And Israel then goes out and attack everybody. 6 countries in the last 2 years. And what happens to the Christians after the attack takes place? They die. Nothing left of them. They dead. Yeah, interesting. So what do you think of them, Americans? Tell me. I want to know. You think that perhaps Yamamoto, for what he did at Pearl Harbor, is the same as what Benjamin Netanyahu or whatever, and Donald Trump did on the 13th June And then the 20th, 22nd, whenever, 22nd. Yeah. You don't think it's the same, actually. Because if you don't think it's the same, you're an idiot. Yeah, you're an idiot. Because it's exactly the same. But I don't see it. I don't see you saying that. No, it takes me, a colonial fellow here from South Africa, I have to tell you this. Yeah. But let me tell you something, friends. If I can see it, who else can see it? Perhaps the rest of the world. Perhaps it's only you who can't see it. When I warned you in this book, Codename Odette, that you are penetrated, that your Western intelligence agencies are penetrated, you didn't listen. No, you went out all the way to destroy my books, destroy me. You sent all sorts of messages to me, what you'll do to me if you can get hold of me, blah, blah, blah. Even if you can get hold of me, what will it help you? You're still penetrated. Huh? They're still reading your ciphers. Your codes are still broken. Yeah, they got people right inside you. Yeah, won't you? You're not listening, are you? You're not listening. But it doesn't matter. Guys, it doesn't matter. This book is available in audio. It's available in hardcover, softcover, Kindle, on Amazon. I'll leave the links for you here. Hope you enjoy it. It's a great book to read. Many, many messages in which is of great importance to the West. Sadly, they were all ignored. So until we meet again, God bless.